Right, what have we got today? Right, it's a Lumintop. Now, as you know, if you watch any of my reviews, I'm a big fan of Lumintop because their stuff is generally pretty high quality. So I'm looking forward to this. Now, this is the FW3A. Now, interestingly, this was developed in conjunction with people, well, forum members and a guy named Fritz15. So I like the fact that enthusiasts have had an input in this, and then Lumintop has been the company which has brought that to fruition. So I'm very interested in that. I mean, I will admit that I remember a while back I saw the initial images of this where it was in silver without the paint and everything, and when I saw it, I'll be honest, I didn't like the look of it. It looked cheap. But this, I'll be honest, looks completely different. It's all smoothed off and chamfered edges and curves and things like that. So it's a massive improvement over the image that I initially saw. So I'll take that back. It's no longer fugly, we shall say. Okay, so it's the Lumintop FW3A, and it's an LED flashlight, so we'll take it out and I'll let you have a look at it. And the one I've gone for is with the emitter of the XPL High. I think I got this in the 5000K range, but I'll go over that, so let's see what you get. Let's take everything out and then we can go over it. So there's the unit itself, so pretty nice. Now I got this in army green. You can get it in grey, blue, purple and this army green. I think there's a sand colour now I've noticed, as well as I think there's a new emitter which is the SST20 if you want a high CRI light, but I'll go over that. So let's see what else you get in the box. I think that's a lot. Nope, right, boosh, chuck that in the bin. Right, let's see what you get. So first off, you've got a little bit of a warning saying insert battery from the head. Now I'll leave that there because I want to go over that later on in the review, so I'll put that there. You get a couple of O-rings, nice to see. The O-rings just go between the two machined parts with the threads and improve waterproofing. Now the waterproofing on this, some people say IPX8 and some say 7. It's probably, I mean, there's a little gasket there. I'm guessing, I'll put it on the screen when I do find out the true value, but it'll be at least 7 or 8, so it's basically waterproof, as long as you're not going diving with it, which is nice to see. I like that and I appreciate that. So a couple of free O-rings, fair enough. And now I'm not going to go over the manual because this uses the UI called Anduril. Now the problem with Anduril is it's fantastic, but it's very configurable, which is great for flashaholics, but not so great for people who don't want to be bombarded. It's a bit like buying a car. They don't say, right, now take this 90-page test to understand everything about the engine. Some people don't want that, but generally everyone on this channel is a flashaholic, so I will go over that at the end of the review, so I'll pop that out of the way. So let's have a look at the unit itself. So I quite like it. Now it's an 18650, so here's an 18650 battery. This is a flat top Samsung 30Q, which I'll be using for the testing. So it's not that much bigger, so it's pretty good. I mean, there are smaller lights. I mean, look, this is slightly smaller, not much, but that's the DQG Tiny, which uses an 18650 as well. So it's doing a pretty good job for what it's actually capable of doing, because it's a multi-emitter, so you get quite an output from this. And as you can see, I've got some little dints on here. Now the reason being is, when I review flashlights, generally what I do is I try and carry them every single day for at least 2 weeks. By doing that, I understand how it feels in the pocket. Are there any issues with use? How does it feel? Is it easy to use and things like that? Does the clip actually work? I really like the clip on this actually. I wish it was deep carry, but it's decent. Too many flashlights now have crappy clips that don't really do anything. I mean, I'm looking for an example here. I don't have one next to me. That's not so good. It's okay, but you see that one, it's sort of coming out the groove a bit. Look, I mean, that's absolutely useless. I like this flashlight, but that's crap. Whereas this one, instead of just hooking halfway around, it goes all the way around. So if you want to take it off, you need to take this section off, which they're saying don't take the tail off. But again, I'll cover that later in the review. So I actually like this clip. I just wish it was deep carry. So a deep carry example would be like the Olight S2 baton here. As you can see, it goes up and over. So what happens is, if this is your pocket, you know, you only have that protruding from the pocket, whereas with this, it's only going to go up here and you'll have all of that protruding. I prefer deep carry, but it's not the end of the world, and not everybody needs that. So it's certainly a solid clip, which is pretty good. And I like the way it comes to this section and it doesn't cover the section which needs to be rotorized, which is a word I made up there, but you can still undo that, and this isn't putting pressure on that to prevent that. So like I say, this is the XPL High 5000K. Now there are other versions you can get. I think off the top, now I'm doing all this all off the top of my head, so I do apologize in advance if I make any errors, but you can get it in a 3300K, which is very yellowy light, then a 5000, which I would personally say is near neutral, in other words similar to sunlight on a sunny day. And you can also get a 6500K version, which is very white light. Also sometimes manufacturers will call that cool white because it's associated with a cool day, in other words light that's gone through the clouds. It's very white. Some people prefer that. Don't let anyone tell you have to get this tint or that tint. It's a personal preference. I prefer neutral white because it reminds me of the sunshine, but it's up to the individual. You can also now get this in an SST20 emitter, which comes in around 4000K, which is near neutral-ish. It's on the yellowy side, but you get a high CRI with that. CRI just stands for Color Rendering Index. In other words, it renders colors with a bigger color palette. You don't get such a color cast. You can also get this in the Nichia 219C emitter, which comes in at 4000K. Again, the Nichias, they run a bit hotter. You get a nice, beautiful CRI, but the output's not as good. You can get around 2800 lumens output on this on the XPL high emitters, which I've gone for. However, if you opt for something like the Nichia, yes, you're getting a better color rendering index, but unfortunately you only get 1600 lumens, so massive loss there. I personally wouldn't go for that, but if you're a tint snob, be my guest. Okay, so what we're going to see here is on the front here you've got three emitters. They're partially obscured there by this lens over the top, which is a TIR, which I'll go over in just a second. And this is used in the, I think it's called a Carclo, I think is the name of the company. I think it's a company based in the UK, and the actual model number of this is 10511, I think. Now it's a TIR lens. Now I'll quickly go over what that is. I'm going to do it very rapidly because people cry and leave a mess in their diapers when this goes on for too long. So generally you have your LED, and then there's a little bead over the top, and then light comes out and goes all over willy-nilly. So for example, you have here's the Nightcore Tube V1. I think there's a V2 coming out, but as you can see, light's going all over the shop, right back in your face. Not ideal, is it? Not particularly good. So it's pretty unsteered, I shall say. So one of your options is to have your LED, and then over the top, now this is a cross-section view if you imagine, you have this reflective bowl. So I'll show you that. So an example of that would be here's the Astrolux FT03, a beautiful thrower. Now you can see there you've got the LED, but then you've got this reflective bowl around. Now what does that do? Well, it allows you to throw the light. So the light comes out and then you get your spill, which hits the wall like that. But you also steer the light and bounce it. So you get, there's your spot. So what that allows you to do is it allows you to fire the light out a massive distance. Now the only downside with that is, I'll show you. So here's your spill, which is fine. And there's your spot, which is the bit you're trying to fire out. Now look what happens when that goes over stuff. Unfortunately, it tends to obscure detail, you see. So it's not necessarily good for up close work. Yes, you can fix it by bringing the light back, bring it back until it fixes the problem, or lower the amount of light that's coming out, lower it, right. It's no longer obscuring to it, but it's a little bit irritating on the eyes. So one method to get around that is to go for an orange peel reflector. So it looks exactly the same, but it's all bumped instead of being perfectly smooth. So what happens when that hits the wall, you get your spill and your spot, but they're sort of transitioned. The two zones are transitioned into each other. So an example of that would be the U18 by on the road here. So as you can see, there's your LED as normal, but then you see the way that the bowl, if I can get it to focus, you can see the way that the bowl is certainly not smooth, is it? So what happens there, I'll give you an example, if I can get it to work there. So I mean, that's at absolute full power there. So let's put it on a little bit more sensible setting there, around middle. So as you can see, you're still getting your spill and your spot, but see it's sort of transitioned into the two zones. It obscures detail, it certainly does, but to a lesser extent. Now the whole point of that lens is, sorry, that reflector is to, I mean, this is better for long range. This is better, I would argue anyway, for mid-range, because what happens is you lose the ability to fire really far, but you're getting a nicer transition. And obviously up close, it's still not ideal. For up close, you're probably better off using something like a TIR. Now a TIR forgoes all of this and says, right, I'm not actually going to use a reflector. So you've got your LED there, and you just put a piece of material over the top, and this is your TIR lens. So TIR just stands for total internal reflection. In other words, the light is totally internally reflected within this medium, and then comes out how you dictate depending on the design of the outside. So as you can see from this one, this is the S2 baton, so we'll turn it on. Now you can see obviously there is something of a hotspot, but it's certainly not the same, and it's transitioned out beautifully. It's much better for close-up. I mean, you certainly couldn't argue that this is obscured to a point where it's irritating and you can't see it. So TIR is better for close-up. At higher output levels though, it can be useful at medium range, and I would argue that this is what they've done here. So you've got a triple emitter, which means you can get a lot of lumens. Then you've put the TIR on, which gives you a nice spread. Now interestingly, if you look at a traditional one, this is what I would call anyway a traditional TIR. You see how it's relatively see-through. Okay, now this one, the surface has what I would call a lightly frosted effect. So if I can get it to focus, it's difficult to see in this light, but it's lightly frosted. So what this does is it prevents any sort of patterns. So on this one, I mean, it's hard to see, but when I rotate the light, can you see there's slight movements in the patterns? It's hard to see, and you especially get it on multi-emitters. So let's find a multi-emitter. This is a multi-emitter. This is the S43S, so we'll turn this on. Now if I rotate this, it's hard to see, but can you see on the periphery here? It's hard to see, but there's movement here. So what that means is it's certainly not equal all the way around. There's a pattern to it. Now by doing this, it tends to smooth it out. So I like the way they've done that. So let's get rid of that. So I'm sorry I had to go over that because I know it annoys some people, but nearly 90% of the people who watch this channel do find a piece of information from that which is helpful to them. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll put a battery in. Now we'll go over this now just quickly. Now it's saying insert from the head. Now why can't you insert from this way? Well, you can. So you can take this off, but they're saying don't do that because there's been problems with the switch. And this is the only way to remove the clip if you didn't want it as well. So I'll show you what's under here. So under here you have like your pill here with the spring. Now the problem has been where this has come out and parts have been missing. So rather than me show you, I think it's better if I do a picture, because you know me, I love doing a picture. So I'll explain what's under here. Okay, let's get a bit of paper without rubbish on it. Okay, so you've got your pill there, which you can see. It's got your spring on, okay, and it goes into this shell which has a hole here. Now unfortunately, because of the design, you have your button, which is that silver bit, which is absolutely fine, and then under this should be a piece of like rubbery plastic like that. Now the problem is, between this rubbery plastic and the micro switch on the back of this, there should be what they call a nub. Now it just looks like a small cylinder. Now if you lose that, what happens is that's no longer able to engage the switch. So the problem has been coming up where people have been taking it to bits and going, oh yeah, brilliant, I'll just slap that back together. The nub's missing. It's no longer able to make contact. Now even though I've taken this to bits, I've not had any problems. That doesn't mean other people have been without problems though. I've had messages from people who say they've bought this, it's now in the junk drawer, they're not going to use it. That's a shame. Maybe their version hasn't got this collar here. It's hard to see, but there's a collar there with a cutout section there and a cutout section there. That's the black section that runs around the circumference there. So if you take that out, the whole thing can come out. I'm presuming maybe early models didn't have that, so if you were to take it out this way, the whole thing could fall to bits. You'd lose the nub and it's no longer going to work as directed, which is a shame, because I don't want to dismiss this light and say, well, some people have had issues, so it's a load of crap. Okay, that's not necessarily the case, but I'm still angry that people have had that issue. But it is early days for this light. I guess that's one example you could see anyway. So I'm going to put the battery in how they suggest. So I'll put this back on. Now they suggest you avoid that altogether. Okay, and you do it this way from the head. Okay, fair enough. Now both are O-ringed. You can see the black O-ring there, which is absolutely fine, and the machine's pretty nice. The threads are pretty good, and you can see there's a bit of, is that graphite or something? Looks like there's a bit of lubricant on there, which is fine, nice to see. And then the battery goes in there. Now just for those who want to have a look, it's quite neat how they've done this. I like the way this has been laid out. It's a bit of printed circuit board porn there for those who like it. I like the way they've put the drivers there, so that's quite interesting. It's all very clean and neat and tidy. There's no marks or gouge marks or anything like that. I like how they've put it together. So like I say, I'm going to use a flat top 30Q, and it's an unprotected, because you want maximum amps from this. I know in a previous video someone said amps has nothing to do with output. Not true. But I don't have time to go into that on this review. Right, so basic functions, let's go through them. So your basic functions are press to on and press off. Now this button I like and I don't like, so let's get over the likes first. So why do I like it? It works straight away. There's hardly any travel. It's very direct. It feels nice. There's not a lot of travel to get it to work. It's like a micro switch rather than a clicky. So I really like the switch. The only problem with the switch being like that is if you put that in your pocket, it's incredibly easy to knock on, unfortunately. So what you have to do is you have to e-lock. So you have to 4 locks, and then now it won't work. It's a bit of a disappointment, that. But once you get used to that, it's not an issue. And also there's a nifty feature which I'm about to go over in Lockout, which means it's not a deal breaker. But you do have to lock this out because it's not really protected. I do like the way this is slightly recessed in order for it to be able to tail stand. So if you want to bounce off the ceiling, you can do that. Not a problem. I do like a tail stander, so nice to see that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly at this moment go over the UI, but I'm going to try and go through it rapidly because it's very in-depth. So let's move this out of the way. Right, that's moved out of the way. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to rapidly go over the UI for Anduril because it's very, very in-depth. So basic function is on and off. Couldn't get any simpler than that. When it's on, you have ramping mode. So rather than having 15,000 different modes, you can ramp it up or down. So click and hold, ramps it up. There's 2,800 lumens, ramp and hold, and it goes down to around, I would say, about half a lumen, which is brilliant. That's like a little moonlight mode. I would probably prefer to go a little bit lower than that, with it being a multi-emitter, so it doesn't ruin night vision, but that's doable, that's fine. It's nice to have that there anyway. Right, now within this mode you can change how it works. So you see how it's quite smooth. It ramps up and it ramps down. Now within that mode you have little flickers. So if you notice, little flicker there was half, then little flicker. It's hard to see on camera, but it flickers when it reaches maximum. A quick flicker at medium, and then a small flicker at low. So that's nice to see, but you can change this to a stepped ramp. So if you quickly press 3 times, 1, 2, 3, now see the way it flashes. Now it's ramping in jumps rather than smooth. So you see the little jumps, jump, 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 jump. If you want to go back 3, and then it's back to smooth ramping. I prefer smooth ramping. I like the look of it, but it gives you more of a visual impact if you use the stepped version. Okay, so that's basic functions. You also have a 2-click, which immediately takes you to turbo or maximum ceiling. So 2 clicks is maximum output. Obviously this has a thermal regulation, so once this reaches a certain temperature, I think by default it's around 50 to 60 Celsius, it drops down. Now I've noticed this drops rather rapidly. Now you're probably thinking, well, that's rubbish. Not necessarily. If you remember my review for the MSR D4, this gets so hot you've got to hold it like that like it's like, you know, like you're holding a hot sausage or something. It's absolutely ridiculous. Whereas this one is more conservative. In other words, you can still use it and it drops quite rapidly. So it goes from about 2,800 and then after about 30 seconds, that's starting to reach its level there. Around 30 seconds ish, it'll drop to less than half of your output, and then it drops again around 280, 300 over the next sort of 5 minutes, which is, you could say it's disappointing, but it means you can keep using it. Whereas this, you've got to give up and turn it off and, you know, put it in ice water. It's ridiculous. Whereas at least they've done that. So I'm not going to have a go at them for that. It means you've got a functioning light. So, okay, fair enough. So that's your turbo with the thermal step down, which is very aggressive, but it can be changed and it's not the end of the world. You also have 3 clicks, which is your battery check. So 1, 2, 3. Now, rather than a percentage, it gives it as a voltage. So if we watch, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 volts and 1 flash. So that's 4.1 volts. Now, most flashaholics will know that 4.2 is the maximum charge voltage of a 18650, and then it drops from there. Probably a non-flashaholic isn't going to stand that, and isn't going to understand that. They don't know about voltages and capacities and things like that. But this is a flashaholics light, so well done. I prefer it as a voltage. That's absolutely fair enough. Now within that mode, there are also sub modes. So if we do that again, so 1, 2, 3. So we're in battery check. Now what you can do is you can quickly press twice to go to sunset mode. So there. So it's now in sunset mode. It's also known as good night mode. So what happens is over the next hour, the intensity of this beam will go down and down and down, then off. So I don't know what that's for. If you want to read, you know, Harry Potter as you go to bed or something, you've got that option. Your next subsection in there is beacons. So 2 quick presses. So then you have beacon. So you see how it flashes out there. So that's handy for positioning or just literally using as a beacon if you're camping or missions or anything like that. So handy to have, or if you've crashed your car or something, you want to leave it on the side of the road. Beacons are pretty handy. I've used that for night fishing and things like that. So again, you've got another mode. So if you double click again, you have temperature check. So what's temperature check? Well, we'll wait until it goes back to the start again. So you've got 1, 2, so there's 20, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. So 29 degrees. So that tells you what the temperature is inside. I'm not on about outside, but that's your internal temperature. So interesting feature to have. And then you have 4 clicks, which is lockout. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There was a little flash there. Now it's locked out. Now what I love about this is, even though it's locked out, it allows you to, without having to unlock it and go through all that rigmarole, you can quickly get a small amount of light. And what I like even more is it's got a secret mode to that, which I didn't find in the manual. But so it's locked out. You can only get a small amount of light, which is brilliant. I've used that on many occasions when I've taken it out and I've thought, I can't be bothered to unlock it, but I just need a little bit of light. If you want a little bit more, double click. So there's how much you normally get. If you double click, you get even more. I've used that multiple times over the last 2.5 weeks. It's been fantastic. So I really like that feature, and it's not enough where it's going to drain the battery if it does get knocked, because it has to be held on. So I think that I really like that feature. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 takes us out of unlock mode, so it's no longer locked. Okay, so from then you have 5 clicks, which takes you to momentary mode. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It flickers. Now momentary mode, literally you can just momentarily use it and that's it. So if you press the button, it's on. If you let go, it's off. That's it. That's all you can do. Now unfortunately, in order to turn this off, you've got to disengage the whole circuit and then put it back on again. So it clears it. There, right, we're now back to normal. And then you have Muggle Mode, so 6 clicks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now Muggle Mode isn't like momentary mode. It does allow you some features, but not all. So for example, you can turn it on and you can still ramp. So we're ramping up there and we're ramping down, but that's it. And it doesn't ramp all the way down and it doesn't ramp all the way up. So it's not going to overheat. It's not going to go too low. It's going to be very simple. If you put it in Muggle Mode and hand it to someone, you don't have to worry if they're a non-flashaholic. Now I really appreciate that. Now the reason it's called Muggle Mode, Muggles are just non-magic users in the Harry Potter universe. So what it means is it's for non-flashaholics basically, so that's nice to see. Now you must remember to disengage this, otherwise you lose other modes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right, we're back to normal. So just to check that, let's see if we can go really high. Yes, we can. And we can go super low. So we're back to normal. So I like that Muggle mode. You also have, I was going to say you have 7 clicks. You don't actually, even though I've got Anduril on the E07 by Fireflies, 7 takes you into configuration of the auxiliary LEDs. This doesn't have auxiliary lights. I don't really think it needs it anyway. They're always sometimes a bit of a gimmick anyway. So there is no 7 clicks, but there is a special mode called click, click, hold. So I'll show you that now. So if I go click, click, hold, it goes to candle mode. So I'll put my hand at this so you can see what's happening. Now, can you see that's flickering? Not at a standard set rate like a strobe, but it's randomly flickering like a candle would. So it sometimes gets a little bit more and sometimes gets a little bit less. It's almost like spluttering. So you can pretend to be a candle. Now within that you can press and hold for more intensity. That's probably more than you'd get from a candle anyway. And then click and hold turns it down. You're reducing the intensity. So a very low intense candle flame there. So I'll show you that flickering. It's hard to see. So I don't know when I would use that. Maybe as if you want to put on some Barry White and be romantic, you may want that, or if you live in a church. Within this click, click, hold, you also have other modes. So if I double click, it goes to the next mode. Now this is bike flash mode. I think that's quite useful. So it gives you a steady stream, but as well as that, it gives you like a quick double pulse. So handy if you put that in the handlebars of a bike or something like that. It draws attention to the light. So interesting feature, bike mode. I don't think I would use that, but it's nice to see. And next you have party mode. So if I double click again, right, that's party mode. I'll cover it a little bit because I don't want to annoy people with epilepsy and things like that. So within party mode, it's basically a type of strobe, really, a lower intensity strobe. Now you can change the intensity. So if I click and hold, see how it gets slower and slower and slower. So it's hardly visible there. It's going so slow. And then if I click and hold, it gets faster, 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 faster. So you're able to it's quite interesting the way you're able to change the almost stepless. There's probably about 500 steps worth of choice there with the strobe. You can make it as fast or as slow as you want. So I think that's an excellent feature. You can tailor that to yourself. And then you also have a tactical strobe. So if you click again, so double click, there's tactical strobe. Now tactical strobe is literally just maximum output strobed on and off. And again, you can click and hold to change the rate of that, or click and hold like that, and it changes, slows down, slows down, slows down. So again, you can tailor that as you wish. And then your next mode is lightning storm. So yeah, lightning storm. Now what's lightning storm? It's kind of similar to the candle, but it's on and off. So it's massive increase in intensity, then down, almost like how you would see lightning strikes. So interesting, and again, you can raise the intensity or lower the intensity through click and hold or just a single click. So then turn that off and we're back to normal. So that's the UI. Now I had to go through all of that because it's a very in-depth UI, but I just want to make sure everyone knows all of the different options, because I know if I don't, people say you didn't cover this or you didn't cover that. So let's move back to this. So I really need to tell you what I like and what I don't like. So I mean, pros, it's tiny. It's nearly as small as the 18650 Tiny by DQG, so exceptionally good, even though it's got a tail clicker which extends length. So they've done an excellent job on the length. It's a nice multi-emitter. I would argue that this frosting does work. It's beautiful, close to mid-range. It's not so good thrower, but that's not what this is built for. I love the Anduril UI. I really, really like it. It's got a beautiful flood. I like the lockout, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then if you need it, you've got a little bit, or double click and you've got a lot. I love that feature. Like I say, I've used that, God, at least 3 or 4 times in the last few days. I love that feature, so well done on that. Now cons, the E-switch is heaven and hell. So yeah, it's great, but you need to lock it out because it's so easy to knock on. I mean, if you compare that to something like a simple Convoy S2, you can't really knock that. It's recessed out the way, and if you do, there's a lot of travel, and it's got to click in. You can't knock that very easily, whereas this, the tiniest little knock on the keys in your pocket and it's on. So it's beautiful and tactile, but it's also one of its letdowns. But if you're willing to accept that it needs locking out, that's just part of life. Okay, I wish the clip was deep carry. That's just a personal preference though. And also a few issues I've had where if it's not perfectly tight, you get strange behavior from the UI, but I'm never able to duplicate them more than once. So I don't know whether that's something to do with machining mechanics or how this has been put together or certain tolerances. I think the problem is because it's the way that it connects together. Because this switch needs to talk to this, you've got this inner tube here. It's quite interesting design. You've got this black inner tube which then connects to this. It's the only way they could have done it, but you've got to have everything tightened properly, otherwise it's not going to function. And I think that's where a lot of the problems are coming from, not just the fact that you have this tail issue where people have been going bananas over it. And I can't argue with these people. If you've bought one of these and it's not working, it's infuriating. Bear in mind the price. I know people say these are cheap. I wouldn't say they're that cheap, although you have to spend a little bit more for a Lumintop, fair enough. The step down is very quick on this, but the problem with the step down is you've got two options. Do you want burnt hands like on the D4, and laugh all the way to bonfire night, or do you want fingers that are lightly warm and you've got a functioning light where you're not having to go quickly turn down? I think this is probably the better option for the connoisseur, even though this is a hot rod. So it's an interesting take. But I think they've probably done the right thing here. Instead of this, this gets so hot, you can smell the paint coming off, it's ridiculous. Whereas this steps down rapidly, but because it's so floody and you've got a nice output anyway, it doesn't really matter. And I've found no sort of terrible parasitic drain on this. I've used this for weeks and I really like it. The only problem I have is I think they need to maybe, I don't know, mine seems okay, but if people have been still having issues with this switch, that may need to be re-looked at. But I'm not an engineer, and I always say this, I'm not an expert and I don't claim to be an expert. With that in mind, do I have a right to have a go at these people who've come up with this because they've put a lot of time and effort into it? I can certainly have an opinion, but I've dropped this a few times as well, as you can see. But I'm generally rough with them on purpose, and I throw them into bags and leave them on the floor and things like that because I want to see if they can function, and this works fine. Like I say, I've just had a few little strange oddities when I've been functioning it, whereas generally you get rid of them by tightening or make sure you're not in Muggle mode, because that knocks out certain things. Because I've noticed people saying, I can't get this function, I can't get that function. I'm guessing they're probably stuck in Muggle mode, and that's not meant to be an insult. I've done it myself. Okay. So let's compare that and then I'll give it a mark. So like the obvious comparison for this, a multi-emitter, there's 4 in this, is the D4. It's certainly thinner, isn't it? This just gets so hot, but it's got a higher output. You're getting about 4,500 lumens on this, where you're only getting about 2,800 momentarily anyway for at least 30 seconds. Then it quickly steps down, but you could argue the same on this. It certainly gets too hot to handle. If you want more output and more fun, get that, but this is probably a better option. And I really like this tail clicker. I like a tail clicker. Aesthetically, it looks better. Another option you might want to consider would be the both 18650s, the DQG Tiny. The problem with this is this feels like a prototype. It's certainly lighter. It doesn't have a tail clicker, and this is useless. This actually no. It's not too bad. Okay, fair enough. It works. It's the C4 I'm thinking of. The C4 has a terrible clip. This isn't a tail clicker, but you can still tail stand it. It's a little bit smaller, but it's only a single emitter with a TIR. So you're probably better off with this. Certainly that gives you more output. Talking of multi-emitters, you have the S42, which is the one in my right hand here, and the S43, which is the one here. This does have a shorter tube on it, but it does take an 18650. I just temporarily have this on to try a different battery. Not tail clickers, but they can tail stand. Both multi-emitters. I really like these lights, and they're certainly cheaper if you get them on a deal. So you may be better off, if you want to save money, going for one of these, but it depends what you're after. They're just options, but look at the height difference. I mean, look, they've done an exceptional job there. It can't be argued enough how well they've done on the length of that, and it certainly does feel good in the pocket. Another 18650 option would be the Follow-Off, and it has built-in charging, same way as the S43 and the S42. They both have a USB charging built in, which is an added bonus. It means you don't have to have a charger. I don't care about these sort of things, but there are people who do like onboard charging, so the C4 would be another option. But look, again, much bigger, even though it's not even a tail clicker. Other options for the same battery size would be the S2. Now there's a newer version out of this which I'm still trying to get a hold of from Olight, but they never reply to emails these days, so there's another option. Another couple ones would be the On the Road U18, which also has onboard USB charging, but look, much higher, more beefy, and it's got a orange peel reflector. So this has much better floody, and the output's much better. You're only getting around 1,000 lumens on that if you're lucky, whereas this is at least 2,800. The Zanflare F1 here has built-in USB charging, which is hidden behind this ring. Tail clicker, but look at the length difference. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Look, massive difference in height. So that doesn't really fit in a pocket, whereas that does. You also have the Classic, which is the Convoy S2. Tail stands, no problem. This is kept out of the way. So tail clicker has all the different modes, but look at the, again, height difference, big difference. That fits in a pocket fine, but that fits better. You have the Classic, which is more powerful than the S2, which is the BLF. This is the SE, the special edition of the BLF A6. Beautiful light. I really like this. Highly recommended. Nice deep carrier clip, even though it doesn't come right at the top. Tail clicker, beautiful light. You know, you're getting over 1,000 lumens, no problem. You certainly haven't got the same output as that, but again, height difference, you're paying for it. You're getting much more of a height, even though you're not getting as much output. So I'd still probably go for the FW3A. Another couple of options if you want to go tactical. You've got the Jet Beam. I think this is the Jet IIM TAC, which is a more hard wearing. Same with this. You get 1,000 lumens here. And on the Olight, this is the MR, I never remember the name. There you go. The M2T Warrior, you're getting up to 1,400, 1,600 lumens, same as the A6. But look at this, look again, look at the size difference. I mean, massive size difference there. I would probably go for this. They're all very well and good, but I've dropped this, never had any problems. I think it's pretty good. So I'm going to give this a mark out of 10, and then I'll go outside and I'll show you what it looks like. So let's have a think. So I wish it was deep carry, but that's not the end of the world. I've found a few little strange oddities with it, but I'm hard pressed to duplicate them, and I think it's just when it's not tightened or it's stuck in Muggle mode. I'm not happy about this because I don't think people should be, let's say, if they're paying for a light and they're telling me that they're not able to use it because it doesn't work. I'm annoyed at that, and I don't like to hear that. But I'm going to look into this a bit more and see if I can help the people with those issues. So can I take marks off? I've got to mark on what I see, not just what I hear. So I'll take that into consideration, but I have to mark on my experience over these 2 weeks. I like the E-Lockout. I like the little extra feature, the 2 features of the E-Lockout. Loads of modes. I really like that. It's really small. It's got a lovely flood to it. I like the colour options, and it's got plenty of emitter options. If you want to niche here and lose output, you can do that. But I'm pretty happy with it. As long as you're a flashaholic, you don't mind having to lock it out, I think that deserves an 8. I would give it higher, but I'm hesitant because I'm getting messages from people saying they don't work and they're having issues, and I think these things will work themselves out when they make tweaks. And I'm sorry to hear that, but I've got a mark on my opinion and what I experienced over these 2 weeks. So in fact, it was 2.5 weeks I've ran this. So in my experience, I'm going to give that an 8. I'm hesitant to give it anything higher because of this and issues that people are telling me. I have to believe what these people are telling me. So I'm hesitant to give it a higher mark. But Lumintop have done another decent job. I'm very pleased that people on a forum were able to bring this to fruition. I like that sort of thing. It means that the enthusiasts are driving the market rather than the market telling the enthusiasts, okay, here's the breadcrumbs, here's what you're getting, here's what I've come up with. So I like that. So I'm going to give this a healthy 8 out of 10. Just be aware there may be issues, but you need to look into that before you make any purchase. I wish the price was a little bit less. I know people are saying this is cheap. I must be poor because I don't think it's that cheap. But I'll give it an 8. So enough of me waffling. Let's get outside.